Good morning. When I talk about autonomous driving systems, I often end up with the question that many of you parents get posed when you go on a trip, right? And the question is, the question is there. Are we there yet, right? So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what a Detroit-based company, General Motors, is doing to help answer this question. It's a very exciting time to be in the auto business. It's a very exciting time to be working on these types of technologies. You know, over the last couple of years, a number of organizations have done demonstrations about autonomously driven vehicles. There's one I'll talk about in the bottom of a race that we happened to win. There's a vehicle that went up Pikes Peak a couple years ago. Up in the upper right, you'll see these small two-person pod-like vehicles. These are called the ENVI. We call them electric network vehicles. We actually had a display at the Shanghai Auto Show 3 years ago. And over the course of an entire summer, millions of people got to look at what a future concept of urban megacity transportation might be like. So there's lots going on in this space. Now, I often get the question from people, well, maybe I don't want these types of technologies because I like to drive, or maybe I don't trust my computer to do the driving for me. It's probably a little late to be asking that question. If you think about it, your drive-in today, you had a vehicle that had a computer-controlled engine, a computer-controlled transmission. If you have features like stability control and anti-lock brakes on your vehicle, those are all driven by computer modules that we have on the vehicle with software systems. So we're in the age. And now think about some of the opportunities that I have here on this screen. We still have 32,000 crashes, or 32,000 fatal crashes that take place on highways here in the United States every year. Think about all the time you spend in congestion and traffic jams, bored out of your mind, let alone the ecological aspects of those types of things. And then think about your parents or an older relative that you eventually have to take the keys away because they're not able to continue to drive anymore, or maybe people that were disabled and never could drive. And you start to see that the opportunities are endless here to bring computers in and help us do a little bit more of the driving. And then, of course, there's the distracted driver. These are folks who apparently think their vehicles already have these technologies. But, of course, they don't. Now, the idea of automated vehicles really isn't new. These pictures here date back to the 1950s. These were concepts from General Motors on what future automobile technology might look like. Harley Earl, who's pictured there, is a famed designer who actually headed up the GM design styling staff during this period of time, and he initiated a number of vehicle concepts that talked about what the future might look like. One in particular, the one in the bottom of the picture there, is called the Cyclone. That was in 1959. The Cyclone concept actually had sensors in the bottom of the car that were going to be designed to sense magnetic strips that would be placed into our highways around the United States to help keep the car centered. Now, that never materialized, and quite honestly, this is not a good week to go to Washington and try to get that kind of funding, but the idea was there. If you see on the front of the car, there's these black cones. Behind those cones are actually radar units that are not all that different from the radar units that we're putting on some of our vehicles today to do some of the technology features that we have in place. A major milestone in this whole space took place about 6 years ago, and it was called the DARPA Urban Challenge. This was a race that took place on an abandoned military field in Southern California in the desert, and it was a 60-mile course. Took about 6 hours to complete. There were actually 89 participants, 89 teams that came to participate in this competition. What was amazing is 35 of those teams actually made it to the semifinals. 11 of them actually made it to the finals. And this turned out to be a huge, huge event to provide a catalyst for all these technologies that are moving forward right now. We were fortunate enough to win the event with this Tahoe here that we called the Boss, along with our partners, such as Carnegie Mellon University. And it was called the Boss after Boss Kettering, who was the founder of General Motors Research and Development. Now, this car had $200,000 worth of sensors hanging on it, so it really wasn't practical at the time. But the main thing about this event was it allowed everybody to see that, yeah, we can do this. In fact, fast forward to today, on compact segment vehicles like a Buick Verano, for example, you get some really high-tech technologies that are actually building blocks for these more autonomous type of technologies. This vehicle has a camera system that uses machine vision technology to sense a vehicle ahead and will alert the driver if it senses that a crash may be imminent. It also senses lane markings and alerts for a lane departure. Side blind zone on this car using radar to look for vehicles that might be in your blind spot and hard to see. All of these are starting to happen on many, many vehicles today. We, about a year ago, introduced a very high-tech, advanced active safety package on our new Cadillacs that we call the Cadillac Driver Assist Package. This system has the technologies I just talked about, plus more. It actually has 6 radars on the vehicle, 2 cameras, and ultrasonics around the perimeter. And all these sensors work together to do features like full-speed adaptive cruise control, where the driver just sets the set speed and a gap to the vehicle that you'd like to have in front of you, and will automatically maintain that set and pace you to the vehicle that's ahead and bring you all the way down to a stop even and stop and go traffic. And that same technology can be used to warn the driver of an impending crash, and even if the driver doesn't respond to those warnings, intervene and provide emergency automatic braking to try to avoid or at least mitigate or reduce the severity of a crash. We have those things today. This vehicle, the red one on the picture there, is going backward, this Cadillac ATS. That driver can't see that pole that's behind him. That car will actually stop itself inches before, very abruptly, inches before hitting that pole to help avoid that crash. One very unique aspect of this particular system is the seat that I have there on the right side of the slide. We call this the safety alert seat. It actually uses haptic or tactile sensors. They're little vibrating motors that are embedded into the seat cushion right underneath your thigh. We started doing some research some years ago because we started to fear that as we add a lot of these features in our vehicles, we could have too many beeps and alerts going on and potentially annoy our customers. So we did some research to find some better ways to do it. We found that these subtle vibrations are actually very, very effective in communicating with the driver and helping them understand what's going on so that they can avoid the crash. It also has the benefit of being quiet so that other people in the car don't necessarily know that you've just been nagged. Now, we are working on a next generation of a technology we call Super Cruise. Super Cruise takes those technologies that we have in production and adds the ability now to keep the vehicle in its lane on a freeway. So for this long trip you take up north to Mackinac Island in the summer, enjoy some relaxation and some added benefit from new technologies like Super Cruise. So the driver can actually take their hands off the wheel along with their feet with the cruise control, and the vehicle will stay centered and continuing going forward. We think we can bring a technology set like this to the market before the end of the decade. And our team of scientists and engineers from the Detroit area, by the way, not Silicon Valley, are working really hard to do this. We're very, very excited about offering customers these types of technologies. But there are challenges. We call vehicle perception, where we try to determine what's going on around the vehicle. There's no way we're going to be able to do crash avoidance or automation or autonomous type maneuvers if we don't know where we're located in space and what's around the vehicle. So we're doing work and we're looking for others to help advance some of these sensing technologies so we can have a true 360-degree sensing around the vehicle. I showed some of the sensors that we have today, but we're going to need to add to that to have more precision, more capability, using radars, lasers, vision, whatever technology we can have, we're working on. And yes, we're going to need to make them smaller, cheaper, and lighter too, so we can get them on more vehicles. Maps and GPS, kind of the starting point for doing these types of systems is knowing exactly in space where I'm at and where exactly on a map I am, so I can figure out then, all right, what's my next step? Where do I need to go from here? Then there's vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-infrastructure communication. This is where we're literally going to have two-way radios on vehicles so that my car has a radio that talks to your car, and we trade information like GPS coordinates, speed, heading, and now when we're approaching things like intersections where we can't see each other until it's too late, we actually have the ability to avoid crashes like that too. Our approach is to seamlessly merge all these things together. It's an approach we call sensor fusion. Sensor fusion is exactly the same thing your mind does when you're walking down a street and you see people walking, you see traffic lights, you hear people talking or a siren, and you smell a bakery or whatever, and then your mind does the computing to say, should I turn left, should I turn right, should I go straight? That's exactly what we're doing with these vehicle systems to merge all that information together. So hopefully you get the feeling now that we're actually on a journey. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Starting at the lower left on the screen, these are technologies we have in production today, like I showed on that Verano. And we do see ourselves going all the way up that curve, up to and including fully autonomous driving, where you can push that button and take you to work someday. But it is a ways off. There are, in fact, actually some steps that are going to take place. And these steps are where the technology and reliability increases, and we balance that with what the driver needs to do, the level of attentiveness that a driver may still need to have as these technologies evolve. And then some technology enablers, like the ones I talked about. We still have to have better sensing. We're going to have faster processing, better ways of pulling all that information together. And then you'll see these things continue to go step by step. So I talked about the example of our Cadillac technology that's available today. That's on this roadmap. It does emergency intervention if a crash may be imminent, provides the assistance of adaptive cruise. Our Super Cruise concept, which is an example of a on-demand, temporary assistance type of a feature where the driver still needs to pay attention. And then we'll move on step by step by step towards more complex systems. And we will get there. Thank you.